Yesterday you saw Bridget's report on the goodbye generation, and today we're going to take some time with Bridget Antwi, and one of the people you saw featured in that report, Laura Bronson, just to kind of fill in the gaps and talk a bit more about this. The essential thesis, Bridget, was that kids are leaving church in unprecedented numbers, and not just kids.
Not just kids, 18 to 35, that's the prime target.
18 to 35.
Yeah.
And in your report you talk about this, but just let's review a bit. Any sense of why?
Well, in the report, Dave Sawler talked about several things. And so one of the things was just faulty theology, how churches don't challenge their young people to really address theology. Like, there's some very difficult things that happen in the Old Testament and the New Testament. You know, an example of this that was in the report was, you know, there are parts of the Bible where God instructs the people of Israel to go into towns and to kill everybody and everything, right? In our generation, that's called genocide, right? And it's like, and it's funny, like Laura and I were talking behind the scenes, and it's those are the things that people, unbelievers, people who want to question your faith and ask you questions, they ask you about, right? And so if you're a church and you're not sitting down and, you know, taking those tough questions, or even sort of going through even just the hermeneutics of those verses, I'm in school now and someone comes up to me and, oh, you believe in Jesus? Well, why would God do this? And your kid's sitting there going, I didn't even know that was in the Old Testament. You know what I mean? And so that was one of the reasons. Another thing Dave Sawler talked about was the fact that a lot of churches lose young people between the transition between youth group and adult church, right? Like, he talks about the fact that youth group is extreme discipleship, extreme community, extreme accountability. They go out and they do things. And then you go into adult church and they're like, come there and spectate, you know? And it's like, that's not what we do. We are the generation that goes on missions trips, that volunteers, that does things. And so you're losing us around the curve. And then he talked also about the fact that a lot of kids, when they're 18, 19, it's the first time they're leaving home to go away to college and university. And this is the first time for a lot of people, depending on where you grow up, that you're exposed to different religions, you're exposed to different cultures. And now you actually have people asking you real questions about your faith. It's not just people who look and think and talk and smell like you. It's people who are like, you believe in this Jesus? Why? Like, he's made up. And so how do you, as a young adult, deal with that if you're not used to that? And so he was saying that, you know, once a young adult leaves your youth group, that shouldn't be it. There's Facebook, there's email, there's telephone. There's no reason why you as a youth leader, you as a member of a church, you as a member of a community should not stay connected to your young person. So if you're sending your young person off to school, you're looking out for where they're going to live, what they're going to eat. Why are you not looking for a church? Why are you not doing the research to find a church to put your child in that's going to help nurture your child to that next level of adult faith?
Now, Laura, you're in the report, and you have a ministry called Keep It Real. Yep. And you're also a skateboarder.
Yeah, this is true.
And you got the scars to prove it.
Just fell a week ago.
There you go. You're recovering.
Yeah.
But why haven't you left the church? Why are you promoting church with young people?
Well, basically, like, I got really connected. Even a couple years ago, like, I even felt a bit like I was about to walk away from, like, church and everything. Like, not walk away from God, but I was just getting frustrated. Like, I just started seeing all my friends, like, walk away and party and do their own thing. But I just kind of, like, inside my heart, like, was getting stirred up to just try and do something different, try new stuff. So, like, yeah, I was just, like, really motivated to, like, yeah, just not give up on, like, the church and on my friends. Like, just seeing all these people, like, walk away, it kind of broke my heart. So I just kept praying alone to God, basically saying, God, like, in any way, like, try and, like, use me to reach out to my friends. Like, if it's through skateboarding, if it's through graffiti, like, art or something, like, God help me to just not give up on my friends and stuff.
Now, I've read researchers who tell us that even though kids may be giving up on the church, they're not necessarily turned off by Jesus. There's an attraction to him, but not necessarily those who purportedly represent him. Is that true in your experience?
Yeah, well, a lot of friends that I know, like, they're still telling me, oh, I still believe in God, Laura. Like, I still, like, I know that, you know, Jesus was here on the earth, but I think it's more of just, like, they don't want to, like, because they might find it's too hard to, like, just keep following Jesus, and, like, they just want to do what's fun in the moment, like, And
when you say about too hard, are we talking about the rules, the regulations that the church has presented to them in the name of Jesus, or are they talking about their exposure to the gospel themselves, and that's too hard for them?
Yeah, well, I guess, like, they find it too hard to just, like, keep going to church. Like, kind of what we talked about earlier, just how, like, sometimes on a Sunday, like young people, young adults, like they'll go, but like they don't really feel like they belong, or they're like, well, what am I doing here? Or like, you know, I'm not really trusted. Like even sometimes in teenagers, like there's like some awesome teenager leaders out there, but if no one gives them a chance, like they're gonna check out, right? They're gonna just kind of blank out or on their own. When they are old enough, when their parents tell them not to go anymore, they're just gonna stop going, right?
No, I shouldn't ask a woman this, and you don't have to answer, but how
You can ask me.
old are you?
I'm 23.
You're 23.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to get proactive and get out there and do what you're doing?
Well, I just feel like, honestly, if I don't do it, like, it's almost like I'm not doing what I'm called to do. Like, since I was, like, a really, like, young little girl, like, I just kind of, like, feel like I heard God, like, tell me, like, you know, just try and be a leader and, like, for your friends and, like, your age group and stuff. And just even right when I got out of high school, I remember, like, being in, like, Bible college or whatever, and I was just about to, like, write my exam, and I was just, like, right before writing that exam, I was just praying to God, and I like really felt like I like God's just like, Laura, what's like your dreams? What's your desire? And I was just telling him, like, I just want to like travel around skateboarding. I just want to travel around like sharing like your love with like young kids. However I can do that, God, like do it. And then even through like that moment, like God just started opening doors. Like I think like just taking little steps, being obedient.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah. I should say, Jim, Laura's actually about to go on tour with West 49, which is a skater clothing company. She's the only girl on the skater team. They're going from British Columbia right across Canada, and she's going to be skating with them.
Now, how did that happen? How did West 49 connect with you?
Well, I worked there this Christmas for like in the store for a bit, and then I met a couple of people in the head office. And then basically, like, they just contacted me and said, you know, we heard that you like teaching skateboarding. Would you be interested on the tour? And so, yeah, I'm just like so pumped about it. I think about it like every day, and it's just a good opportunity to reach out to kids.
But you know what you said about just doing it little steps at a time is absolutely true. I often say to young people, dream a big dream, but take small steps. You know, a big dream can intimidate you, but a small step never does.
Yeah.
And who knows where this who knows where this cross Canada tour is going to lead you?
Who knows?
It's phenomenal.
But like honestly, like last summer even, we did Camp Keep It Real, like just in Burlington. And it was like the smallest thing ever. There was honestly maybe 10, 15 kids that showed up. And it was like all like non-church kids. We just put out flyers, and like all these parents came. And like it was just so small, and it was like such a hot day. I remember we just had like one ramp and one rail set up. And as we just like skated with them, taught lessons, I just remember like we got to like tell them a bit about Jesus and whatever. But it's like little like steps like that. I remember like going home, and it's like the best feeling, even though there's only like 10 kids, and like just praying like little prayers, like God, like in any way you can like use skateboarding, like use it, you know?
Well, you know, Jesus only had 12.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And he's changed the world with his 12. And the fact is that you start small, and every time you go back to do something, it's a little bigger, and the Lord builds you.
Yeah.
Bridget, were you kind of, were you surprised at what you discovered in interviewing Laura and the others and doing this piece?
You know what? No, I wasn't. Laura and the other lady who was in the report, Danielle, and Cal, who was the only guy on the panel, and the one guy who actually who quit church, you know, they really challenged me. Like, you know, I'm a couple years older than Laura. I'm 26, but I thought to myself, man, what was I doing when I was 23 years old? I definitely wasn't, you know, traveling across Canada speaking to young people. And I just thought to myself, you know, and Danielle started a house church her and her husband have a house church in their community. And it's like this amazing, organic, just refreshing thing. And I thought to myself, wow, you know, every time when you hear older people talk about young people, it's always, oh, they're slackers, they're this, they don't get involved in church. And it's like, no, that's not true. You know, there's so much untapped potential. And I mean, Laura's a go-getter, so she went out and did it on her own. But my challenge to youth pastors is, how many Lauras are sitting in your congregation? You know, how many Danielles and Cals are sitting in your congregation? You need to like, you know, one of the things that Dave talks about in the report is that, and you just brought it up too, he talks about discipleship. We've like lost the notion especially for young people, because we're so desperately trying to police their behavior that we've lost sort of the connection with discipleship. And Dave said very clearly, like in the report, I'm sorry, not in the report actually, I wasn't able to keep it in. You know, if you ask Jesus, who are your disciples? He can name all 12 of them. And now I'm not saying, you know, be like Jesus and have 12 people. That's a lot of people to take on. But if you're a person of faith and you're in a church for 20 years, and someone asks you, who is your disciple, and you can't name one young person, person or even one person in general, what are you doing? Like,
so sad.
what are you doing? You need people like me. For me, being here, people like you, Jim, all the people that I work with, you guys pour into my life in ways that you have no idea. And it's like, you know, but it's not like in a condescending way. I'm obviously, you know, I could be your child essentially, right? But you don't treat me like, you know, I'm an idiot or anything like that. You're not there trying to police my behavior, police what I'm wearing, doing all that stuff. You treat me as an equal and you challenge me in your faith walk. And that's how it needs to be done. That's how you disciple, right? And so I think that's the most important thing. It's like, I walked away from that thinking, man, like, who are the Lauras in my life? You know, who are the Danielles? Who are the Cals in my life? And how can I, you know, through my life and my walk and just how I live my life, be that person to say, you know what? I love Jesus and I'm normal. I like to do normal things. Like, I'm not this weird person who's gonna like talk to you in language that you don't understand or, you know, tell you, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. I'm gonna love you and accept you for who you are.
You know, the irony is that people have, I think, the best interests of young people at heart.
Yes, they do.
But it's almost like they speak a different language, especially if they come from a church context, right, Laura? Like there's almost a kind of a church speak, you know, and a way of dealing with life that just kind of blocks the youth culture out. I mean, I'm sure there are adults that, you know, I mean, you're an adult, but older adults that you know, you have looked up to and admired over the course of your life who have, for some reason, been able to break free of that gap and are really on your wavelength, right?
And like give you a chance, let you like step up even if you make a mistake. They're just like, try. Like even, Dave Sawler, like he's someone who I really like look up to. Like he's kind of like a hero in my life, just because like, I mean, he's such an average like dude, like such an average guy, but yet he's one of those leaders that will just let you like try something new, and even if you do mess up, like he'll give you another chance. He's there to mentor you, and I mean, and it's cool too because he's like a pastor and he skateboards, which is like so rare and hard to find these days, right? But definitely, yeah, I think it is hard though, because like I look at my life like, man, if there wasn't even like Dave Sawlers out there that actually said, okay, here, what's your dream? Like run with it. Then like I would just be sitting at home. I would just like give up on ministry and like.
What kind of encouragement have you got from your home life to do what you're doing?
Okay, well my parents are Christians, so like they are supportive. But I think they are like the typical average parents. Like they're awesome. Honestly, I love them. But I think like just from the past few years of traveling around doing Keep It Real, like just at one point we're like going to like a new youth group or drop-in center like every weekend, and it got to be really busy. So a bit of them were a bit of them like I understand where they're coming from, but they're just telling me a bit to like, you know, Laura, you gotta slow it down. Like you know, like you should try and find like a more steady job and whatever. Like, and I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but like I think that's kind of hard a bit. But I understand where they're coming from, but they are pretty supportive.
They want you to have an income. They want you to have a stable life. I mean, you know, parents are still parents. In fact, you know, my parents are in their 80s, and they're still my parents. And, you know, and you can appreciate where they're coming from, as you say. But you know, I'm thinking about this dissing of youth culture by the older culture. I mean, it's as old as Socrates. I remember years ago in university, I'm studying Platonic philosophy, and there's this dialogue with Socrates at one point, and someone with whom he's talking is dissing the youth culture. You know, they're lazy, they sleep too much, they don't have any ambition, they don't have any, you know, and I mean, it just seems to kind of go with the territory. And I think part of the challenge for you, Laura, is that when you are my age, you know, that you be empowering the youth culture rather than dissing them, right?
Yeah, that's my goal. That's what I hope to.
Yeah. So you're going to do this cross-country tour. Yeah. And that's going to take you an entire year?
No, just the summer. I start literally like in a week. It's like 60 days long. Yeah.
Well, you know, take it on as from the Lord, and be alert to some of the signals, because there's no question, you know, whatever you're doing now is a building block in what you'll be doing in the future. There's no question about it.
True.
That was a great report yesterday. Thanks for bringing Laura in today. I'm glad that there are Lauras in the world who are keeping it real.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
You guys rock.